Francis Bacon. Born on January 22, 1561 in London, England, Francis Bacon was destined to change the world. His father was Sir Nicholas Bacon, and his mother was Lady Anne Cook Bacon, which was Sir Nicholas's second wife. Sir Nicholas Bacon was the Lord Keeper of the Great Seal, which was an officer of an English crown charged with the physical custody of the Great Seal of England. Lady Anne Cook Bacon was the daughter of Sir Anthony Cook, a humanist who was Edward VI's tutor, and the sister-in-law of Lord Burghley. On April 1573, Francis Bacon attended Trinity College, Cambridge, when he was only 12 years old. He completed his studies at Trinity in December of 1575. The following year, he enrolled in a law program at the Honourable Society of Gray's Inn. His brother Anthony also attended this school. A year after he enrolled at Gray's Inn, he left to work under Sir Amyas Paulet, a British ambassador to France, for a mission in Paris. Two and a half years into the mission, he was forced to abandon it and return to England immediately. His father had died. Because of his death, Francis Bacon was left with no money, causing him to turn to his uncle, Lord Burghley, for help to find a well-paid post as a government official. Unfortunately, Lord Burghley refused to help. As a teen, Francis had to find a way to support himself on his own.
In 1581, Francis Bacon took a job as a member for Cornwall in the House of Commons, the lower house of the Parliament of England. In 1582, he was chosen for the position of the outer barrister, one who belongs to the outer bar. From 1584 to 1617, Bacon was extremely involved in politics, law, and royal court. In 1603, he was knighted to the British throne and served as Attorney General 6 years later. In 1616, his career was at its peak. He was invited to join the Privy Council, a body of advisors to the Sovereign of England. A year later, he reached the same position as his father, Lord Keeper of the Great Seal. In 1618, Bacon was promoted to the title of Lord Chancellor, one of the highest political offices in England. In 1621, he became Viscount St. Albans. Unfortunately, Bacon was accused of accepting bribes and was impeached by Parliament for corruption. He was fined and sentenced to the Tower of London, but fortunately, he was released of his sentence and the fine was lifted. He was released at the cost of his position in Parliament after 4 days of imprisonment. He lost his reputation in his political career. After his fall in his political career, Bacon focused on science. His goal was to create a new outline for science. Unlike the doctrines of Aristotle and Plato, Bacon's approach was to emphasize observations and experiments. Therefore, he focused on methods that depended on proof rather than theory. This is what's called the scientific method. His new scientific method included gathering data, analyzing it, and performing experiments. He tried to share these ideas with his uncle, Lord Burghley, and later with Queen Elizabeth in his letter of advice. Lord Burghley and Queen Elizabeth were ignorant to Bacon's evolving philosophy until 1620, when he published Book 1 of Novum Organum Scientiarum. Francis Bacon was also a writer. As a lawyer, member of Parliament, and Queen Elizabeth's counsel, Bacon wrote on questions of law, state and religion, as well as on contemporary politics. In 1584, he wrote a letter of advice to Queen Elizabeth, his first political memorandum. In 1609, he released On the Wisdom of the Ancients, which was his analysis on ancient mythology. In 1620, he published Novum Organum, which is Latin for new method. The Novum Organum consisted of Bacon's new scientific method. Francis Bacon's work ranged in a variety of topics, but all his topics shared one thing in common. It expressed his belief and desire to change old ideas and systems.
Francis Bacon was a council statesman, philosopher of science, and writer. Francis Bacon is best known for his procedure of the scientific method. The scientific method is the foundation of modern scientific inquiry. A lot of people had an influence on the scientific method since it did change several times. Some people that influenced it, other than Francis Bacon, are Aristotle, Greek philosophers, Muslim scholars, and Isaac Newton. Before Francis Bacon, Roger Bacon created his own version of the scientific method. His version involved 4 major steps: observation, hypothesis, experiment, and verification. In 1620, Francis Bacon wanted to strengthen Roger's process and create another method. Francis Bacon's 4 major steps were empirical observations, systematic experiments, analyzing experimental evidence, and inductive reasoning. Francis Bacon made it better and more modern. Bacon himself claimed that his empirical scientific method would spark a light in nature that would eventually disclose and bring into sight all that is most hidden and secret in the universe. His work of the past greatly impacted the way we view science today. It creates a better understanding in science and helps us conduct experiments with more accurate outcomes. Today, Francis Bacon is a major influence in scientific methodology. In March 1626, Bacon was performing a series of experiments with ice. While testing the effects of cold on the preservation and decay of meat, he stuffed a hen with snow and caught a chill. He was very sick, so he went to stay with Lord Arundel in London. The room he was staying in was musty and cold, which caused him to develop bronchitis. On April 9, 1626, Francis Bacon died. After his death, his theory started to greatly influence 17th century European science. The Royal Society utilized Bacon's applied science approach and followed the steps of his reformed scientific method. Although Francis Bacon's method was not accepted immediately, his thoughts were later well known and it enlightened the world on the views of science today.
Thank you for watching our presentation on Francis Bacon.